Now, a lot of people will use this word, sovereign. Have you heard people say, God's sovereign? Now, I don't use that word for the simple reason that that word is not found anywhere in the book that I'm holding in my hand. From Genesis to Revelation, you will never find the word sovereign. Unless you're reading the NIV, you'll find it 100 times. In these false new Bible versions, I believe that's the NIV that has it over 100 times. But it's found in all the modern perversions, the ESV, the RSV, the HIV, the SUV, the ATV. Okay, they all contain this word over and over again, sovereign, sovereign. And you'll constantly hear people that are Calvinists harp on this. God sovereign, God sovereign, 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 sovereign. They just keep repeating it. And they repeat it so much you start to think it's a biblical truth. It's like, well, of course God's sovereign, right? Like whenever you start talking, that's like their starting point. Well, you agree that God's sovereign, right? And I always says, no. I don't even know what that means. Why? Because it's not a biblical word. And it's not that I'm ignorant. That's not why I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means because it means something different to everybody who's using it. Because people use it to mean different things. And since there's no biblical definition, there's no concrete definition. See, words that are used in the Bible have a concrete definition that's found in the Bible itself. We can use the Bible to pin these words down and to have a concrete definition. But when we use words that are not used in the Bible, they mean whatever people think they mean. Isn't that the truth? And words change in meaning over time to mean things that are completely different. Sometimes a word starts meaning one thing, and hundreds of years later it will mean the opposite. Literally. And if you study etymology of words, you'll find that to be true very often. That words change in meaning over time. But see, the words in the Bible are anchored in the Bible, and we can use the Bible to define them and to interpret them. Words like sovereign, they're just words that can easily be abused and twisted because they have no biblical meaning. Because they're not in the Bible. Now, when people say he's sovereign, I mean, I'm assuming that they mean he's the king. Now, I do believe that God's the king. He's the King of kings and Lord of lords. And I know, isn't there a coin that's called like a sovereign? Isn't that like a gold coin? Somebody help me out. Is it a British sovereign or I don't know. It's some kind of money. A 5-year-old's raising their hand, but I don't know if I'm going to call them. But anyway, the sovereign is some kind of a coin, and it's got some king or queen on the front of the thing, right? So I believe God's the king, but when people say he's sovereign, here's what they mean. Oh, he's controlling everything. He's controlling everything. Everything is happening on this earth according to his will. And let me tell you something. That is a lie. If that's what you mean by sovereign, no. If you mean he's the king sitting on the throne and that he has all power, I believe he has all power. I believe he's omnipotent. But here's the thing. Let's go to the illustration of a king. God does compare himself to a king, and he actually is a literal king as well. But when the king sits on the throne, he has all power, perhaps. But wait a minute. Does that mean he's controlling everything that's happening in the kingdom? Does that mean no one can disobey him? No, here's what it means. No one can disobey him without consequences. But does that mean that no one can disobey? No, because nobody can make you do anything. I mean, you could spit in the king's face. Now, it's probably going to be off with his head if that happens, but you could still do it. He's not controlling everybody or everything. Okay, so that's a false doctrine. If that's what you mean by sovereignty, that God's controlling the events on this earth, then that is a heresy and a false doctrine.